Hey everyone, and welcome to the ATA podcast. I'm Matt Beard.
And I'm Andie Ho. This podcast is brought to you by the American Translators Association. Each month, we bring you news and insights from ATA. We look at what's happening across the association, explore the benefits of membership, and discuss the translation and interpreting professions.
That's right. You know, the T&I industry is always changing, and we hope this podcast will help you keep up with it. ATA was founded over 60 years ago to advance the translation and interpreting professions and foster the professional development of individual translators and interpreters. We have nearly 9,000 members in more than 100 countries.
If you'd like to know more about ATA, we'll have some information for you at the end of the show. And you'll also find links in the notes. The American Foundation for Translation and Interpretation, or AFTI, was founded in 1997. It supports charitable activities, education, and research in support of the translation and interpreting professions. It does this through various activities, by bestowing awards and scholarships, sponsoring conference attendance and presentations, awarding research grants, and establishing and maintaining an archive of documents and artifacts relating to the practice of translation and interpreting. But today, we're here to focus on AFTI's $500 first-time ATA conference attendee scholarship, which is given to students and recent graduates of translation or interpreting studies programs or related fields to help defray the cost of attending ATA's annual conference. One of last year's scholarship winners, Halla Bearden, is here with me today to talk about her experience as one of these recipients. Halla's working on her MA in translation with a focus in interpreting at the University of Vienna in Austria, and she'll probably have finished it by the time you're listening to this in 2023. She's currently based back home in Houston, Texas, just down the road from me, where she works as a freelance German to English conference interpreter and ATA certified German to English translator, specializing in technology and intellectual property. She also volunteers with ATA by serving in the German to English certification exam grader group and by hosting Slovo, the Slavic Language Division's podcast. Welcome, Halla. Thank you for joining me here today.
Thanks, Andie. I'm happy to be here.
First off, how did you find out about this AFTI scholarship?
So I first heard about the scholarship from Veronica de Michelis, ATA president-elect. So when I first moved back to Houston around a year ago, after being in Vienna for my master's, I joined an ATA certification exam preparation group run by the Slavic Languages Division. And Veronica and I connected through there and realized that we both live in Houston. So we met for coffee almost exactly a year ago now. And Veronica was encouraging me to attend the conference and telling me about her first conference experience. And she also got the AFTI scholarship the year that she attended her first conference. So that was the first time that I heard about AFTI and the scholarships they offer.
And what made you decide to apply?
Well, I really wanted to attend the conference, but I really didn't want to pay the registration fee. I think a lot of first-time conference goers can maybe be a little intimidated by the cost of attending, especially if you're still a student and you don't necessarily have a lot saved up like I was. So the scholarship just seemed like a really great opportunity to be able to attend and start getting involved more with ATA and becoming a part of the community, making connections.
So were you planning on going anyways, or you just wanted to, but were sort of maybe unable to because of the cost?
Yeah, I was kind of on the fence, I think, or I really wanted to go. I thought it would be a great opportunity, but I was a little intimidated about the cost. I probably would have still ended up attending anyway, but getting the AFTI scholarship definitely finalized and solidified my decision.
Okay, so what is the application process like? Did you have to do a song and dance and submit a video of you juggling, or what did you have to do?
Yes, how did you know? No, so there was an application and it wasn't too long and it was pretty standard. It asked just questions about my studies, my master's in translation, and my involvement with the ATA. And then there was a few kind of short essay, short answer questions regarding how I thought attending the conference would help me further my education and or translation and interpreting career. So I submitted that application along with a resume, I think. And that was pretty much that.
Do you remember, were there any, did they ask for your GPA or grades or transcript? I'm just thinking for anybody who's maybe a little bit worried about their performance.
Right. So yes, they did ask for my GPA and I think proof of enrollment as well. So that was a little funny for me because Austria uses a different GPA system, or they don't use the GPA system at all, really. But I found a way, I guess, to kind of convert it into, the US 4.0, 0 to 4.0 GPA scale, and then proof of enrollment. They accept, I think, just several kinds of documents for that, like a current transcript or a letter from your administration, that sort of thing.
What appealed to you about attending the ATA conference as a student?
I think for me, there were two main things. First of all, I felt like I was in kind of a period of transition from being a student to being a professional translator. So I had finished all of my master's courses, but I was still in the process of writing my master's thesis. So I knew I couldn't just jump headfirst into working full time yet, but at the same time, I wanted to start getting my feet wet and kind of lay a foundation for my post-graduation career so that it would already be there and be ready for me to build on once I officially graduated. And I felt like connecting with colleagues and potential employers at the conference would be a good way to do that. And the second thing is that I just wanted to get involved with the T&I community. I think also since I did my master's in Europe, but then decided to move back to the States, I felt like I didn't really have any translation connections here. And so I wanted to get involved with national and local T&I associations and communities as well.
What did you know about the ATA conference or any kind of conference before you actually arrived?
I guess I, in a sense, knew a lot about it because I heard about Veronica's experience and connected with a few other ATA members who'd already been, who told me about their conference experiences. And then, of course, you can read plenty of material on the ATA website or various language division publications about the conference, and you can read people's conference reviews. You can, look at the schedule and everything. So I was like, well, I know, how it works. Like I know, what will happen at the conference, but I guess I still was missing the experiential understanding, of actually having done it. And I don't think I had ever been to any professional conference before. So it definitely was kind of like a first time experience for me when I went in that sense.
So, based on what you did know, what did you do to prepare before you hit the ground running?
So I printed business cards, I updated my resume, I looked through the sessions that were going to be offered, which was a lot. It was a lot of sessions, going through and looking at the titles and descriptions. I made notes of the sessions I wanted to attend. I looked at the organizations and agencies that were going to be at the job fair and in the exhibition hall. And I also made a short list of goals for the conference. And I also attended a pre-conference ATA webinar on networking.
It's very organized. It's almost as if you're a grad student used to doing research and organizing herself.
Yes, almost like that.
So once you got there, what was your initial impression?
My first impression was just, this is really big. The first event that I went to was Buddies Welcome Newbies, which they have every year before kind of before the big event where like people make speeches, like the president-elect make speeches, and they have kind of a meeting to kick off the conference. Before they do that, they have this Buddies Welcome Newbies event. Our first-time conference goers can meet more experienced conference goers, get some tips. kind of break the ice. So I attended that, and it was held in this really big room, and the room was completely packed. In fact, I heard afterwards that that was actually the highest attendance by far that they'd had for a Buddies Welcome Newbies event before. But yeah, so that was my first impression. I was like, wow, like, yeah, so many people are here. Yeah.
Did that make it better or worse?
No, I think it was pretty cool. Yeah, it felt good. I was like, so many, potential connections, potential friends, and it was just a very excited atmosphere. I think, everyone was very excited to be there, and, start off 4 days of lots of translation and interpreting, nerding out, learning, meeting people, all that good stuff.
So, for those of you listening who don't know about buddies versus newbies, Halla described it very well. You will walk out of this session with a friend, someone who is a buddy who has attended the conference before. But Halla, did you know anybody before that session, like walking into the conference? Well, Veronica, obviously, but anybody else?
So I didn't know anyone super well. I knew a few people like Veronica, like you mentioned. I knew Eugenia Titsakolskaya, who's the administrator of the Slavic Languages Division. And I had also interviewed the distinguished speaker of the Slavic Languages Division, Dmitry Buzadji, for Slovo. As you mentioned, I host Slovo, the podcast of the Slavic Languages Division. And I had interviewed Svetlana Ruth, who also presented at the conference. So I knew them just from those interviews, but not super well. And I had also met a few people from the German language division at a virtual Zoom social that I had already been to, but yeah, no one that I, really knew well before I actually went to the conference.
So once you got there, what connections did you make?
I made a lot of connections, left with a lot of business cards and none of my own business cards. I met so a lot of GLD and SLD colleagues in person, which was really cool. And I met some students from the Monterey Institute of International Studies who are also studying translation or interpreting, which is also cool to connect with some other students, especially since, I didn't have many translation connections in the US in general, but definitely no fellow student connections. So that was cool. I connected with a couple of representatives for the World Intellectual Property Organization, which was cool because now I do contract work for them. So that was very useful. And I connected with some other conference interpreters who invited me to join an interpreting practice group that they hold monthly. So yeah, plenty. I mean, I could go on, but definitely a lot of good connections made.
Now, scholarship recipients, I understand, are required to attend all the days of the conference. So you got the full experience, the full meal
Yes.
deal. What did you learn?
I learned many things. So, I mean, definitely, I would say I learned some concrete skill type things, that I could apply to my work. And then I also just learned some things about the translation and interpreting market in the US and about working with agencies and direct clients. So definitely a broad spectrum. I guess there's some, more skill-based things that I learned in sessions, like about working well with a booth partner in conference interpreting, or things like that. And then, some things more about like the business side of being a freelance translator or interpreter, which was also definitely super helpful for me since, like I said, I felt like I was in that phase of transitioning from student to professional. And I didn't really have any strong background in, just either the market generally in the US or business administration. So those things were definitely helpful for me to get organized. in that regard and have a good foundation for starting out in my work life.
What was one of the most memorable events or sessions that you attended?
Oh man, that's hard to say because I feel like they were all so memorable. I do think the two sessions I attended by Dimitri Bouzaji, who I mentioned, were memorable just because on the one hand he presented useful information, but he's also just a very entertaining speaker. So it was just fun to be in the sessions and listen to him. And also the division dinners that I went to were a lot of fun. I went to the German and Slavic languages division dinners. So that was also a nice opportunity to have kind of more of like a focused get to know you and networking environment with people who share my language combination, and also a chance to just to talk to people more and kind of build more friendships, because at the networking events that happen at the conference, they're great, but they also do go by pretty fast. So you have the chance to kind of, get the elevator pitch from people or hear about how they've, solved certain challenges in their T&I business, and you can exchange business cards, but you don't really just get to, kind of sit and chat and just have fun and get to know each other. So the division dinners were a good chance to just do that as well and build more personal connections.
What was your favorite thing about the conference?
I think it was just meeting people. I mean, it was valuable on the one hand in terms of making connections, but it was also just fun. Yeah, it was, I mean, also just because in my daily life, I don't tend to interact with a lot of people who are also in translation or interpreting in terms of like my family and friend groups. So yeah, being able to talk with other people who kind of get it, and who are really into language and translation like I am, was just a lot of fun.
I'm afraid to ask this, but what was your least favorite thing about the conference?
Um, I think probably that it does end up being tiring after 4 days that are like really jam-packed with new experiences, but I think that's pretty much par for the course for any kind of event like that. So I don't know that that could really be entirely avoided in any case, but I do think during the conference, the adrenaline really kept me going. And then it was afterwards that I realized, like, wow, I'm exhausted, but still definitely worth it.
Yeah, at LA last year, I extended my trip and made it a family vacation and visited some friends, did different things. And all told, I was gone 8 days, but by the time I got home, it felt like I had lived 3 lifetimes in those 8 days.
I can imagine that.
So, all in all, you've told us all about your experience from start to finish. Do you feel in the end that the AFTI scholarship helped advance your education or your career in any way or in the way that you wanted it to?
Yeah, I definitely would say that it advanced my professional involvement and my career. And I think even for students who aren't imminently about to graduate, and they don't feel like they're yet in that transition phase from being a student to being like a full-time professional translator interpreter, I think that that career investment would still be really valuable, and it's definitely not too early to start investing in that.
Agreed. Wise words. So, if you ran into someone who was thinking about applying to the AFTI scholarship, you would say what?
I would say definitely apply. If you apply and you don't get it, you haven't lost anything and you've put yourself out there. And if you apply and you do get it, then you've gained a lot. So you can't lose. Go and apply.
Wise words. She knows what she's talking about. So, listen up, people. Again, the application deadline is July 31st for this year. It applies to current students as well as recent graduates. So get out there and submit your application. If you'd like to find out more, or if you'd like to donate to AFTI to support a variety of scholarships and good works, visit the AFTI website at afti.org. Thank you, Halla, for visiting us with us today. You had lots of good information. We loved it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Andie. It was a pleasure.
All right, that's a wrap. We'd like to thank everyone who helped produce today's show.
Derek Platts mixed and edited the audio. ATA headquarters provided editorial and technical support.
If you learned anything new in today's podcast, I bet there's someone out there who would like to know it too. Don't be stingy. Tell them about the podcast. I've gotten to know so many great podcasts that way. I promise they'll thank you for it.
And if you're not an ATA member, listen up. I've been a member for over 20 years. Joining ATA literally launched my freelance career. It opened the door to a profession I knew very little about, and attending my first annual conference led to my very first freelance job.
And I joined for the first time in 2004 as a student. My first conference blew my mind. Nowadays, the demand for translators and interpreters is at an all-time high, but finding quality work isn't easy. ATA membership can make the difference. And ATA isn't just for translators and interpreters. We have teachers and professors, hospital administrators, language company owners, and technology developers, just to name a few. Companies and institutions can join too. Our membership includes language companies, universities, and government agencies.
If you'd like to know more, go to ATA's website, atanet.org. You can also check out past episodes of this podcast where we talk about the benefits of membership and what's currently happening in the association.
But before you go, please take a quick moment to give us a rating or write a review. Tell us what you like, why you listen, or about your favorite guest. Your feedback is super helpful, and reviews help other listeners find the show too.
We'd really appreciate hearing from you. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Talk to you again soon.